In a city built on blood and loyalty, Victor Moretti was untouchable until betrayal tore his world apart. When his daughter is taken, he declares war on everyone responsible. The streets will remember his name because Mercy died the night she vanished. The Moretti mansion was built for silence. Stone and glass, marble floors that never creaked, thick walls that kept the world out. Most nights, Victor Moretti liked it that way. It reminded him of control, of power earned through fear. But that night, silence felt wrong. It felt like something missing. He sat in his study, the city lights glinting beyond the tall windows, his reflection floating between them like a ghost. The old clock on the wall ticked too loud. Every sound dug into him. His daughter Sophia should have been home hours ago. She was never late. She called when she was delayed, texted if her battery ran low. But tonight there was nothing. No call, no message, no reason. He tried to pretend it was nothing. She was a college kid, maybe out with friends, maybe studying late. He told himself that over and over, but every time he did, it sounded more like a lie. The phone on his desk buzzed once. It wasn't his personal line. It was the other one, the one few people knew existed. Victor stared at it for a long moment before answering. The screen flashed, and a video began to play. A man's face appeared, Damien Cruz. Damien's smile was small and cold. The kind men were when they think they've won. "Your empire ends tonight, Moretti," he said. "Your daughter is mine." The message ended. The screen went black. Victor's jaw tightened, but his eyes didn't move. Then another message came through, just a still image. Sophia, tied to a chair in a warehouse, head hanging, her hair hiding her face. The walls behind her were corrugated steel, industrial lighting above her head. A factory, maybe one of the old ones on the outskirts of the city. Damien wanted him to know where to look. Victor's hand closed around the phone until the plastic creaked. He didn't rage. Not yet. Instead, he went still, completely still. The kind of stillness that meant someone was about to die. The study door opened. Lucas stepped in without knocking, his face grim, rain still clinging to his coat. He had been with Victor for more than 20 years. Friend, enforcer, brother in all but blood. What happened? Victor showed him the phone. Lucas' expression hardened. "Damien." He took Sophia. Luca didn't ask for proof. He just nodded once. "Where?" "Somewhere in the south. Old factory. You can see steel panels in the background." Luca pulled out his phone. "I'll get the men." "No," Victor said quietly. Luca paused. "You want to go alone?" "I want to go right." The air in the mansion shifted as Victor left the study. Servants moved aside, heads lowered. He crossed the hall toward the grand staircase. Isabella stood there, halfway down the steps, robe cinched tight at her waist, her hair still damp from the shower. Her eyes were wide but steady. "Victor." "She's gone," he said. Isabella's breath caught. "Sophia?" He nodded. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Isabella whispered, "Bring her home." He wanted to tell her he would, that everything would be fine, but promises had become dangerous things in his world. He just kissed her forehead, then turned and walked away. In the basement, the war room came alive, the digital heart of his empire. Monitors lit up, maps of the city flickered. Men took positions around tables littered with phones and folders. Victor moved through them like a general through his troops. "Every camera in the south side," he said. "Traffic feeds, security grids, private surveillance. Find me that warehouse." And his best tech man started typing fast. "There's an old textile plant near Red Hook. Power grid shows a spike about an hour ago. Someone's running a generator there." Victor nodded once. "That's him." Luca leaned against the table. "What's the play?" "We go in quiet," Victor said. "No noise, no backup. I don't want her anywhere near crossfire." "You sure?" "I've never been sure of anything." He opened a black steel case in the corner. Inside lay the pistol he hadn't touched in years, a MAT .45 he'd carried back when his name meant nothing. He checked the chamber, holstered it under his coat, and grabbed a knife. Luca geared up beside him. "We go quiet until we can't," Lucas said. Victor nodded. "Then we go loud." As he walked out, Isabella appeared again at the top of the stairs. "Promise me you'll bring her back," she said. He looked up at her, his face carved from stone. I will. And you? She asked. He didn't answer. The SUV rolled through the sleeping city, headlights dim, windows blacked out. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting the glow of street lamps like bruises on glass. Victor stared out the window, seeing not the city, but Sophia, her laughter, her eyes, the way she always tried to make him promise he'd come to her art shows. He'd always said next time. He hated that phrase now. Luca drove in silence, the pistol resting on his thigh. You know Damien's doing this for more than money, he said finally. Victor nodded. He's doing it for pride. And for payback. Then he's going to find out what payback costs. They reached Red Hook just after midnight. The air smelled of salt and rust. The factory loomed over the street, windows dark, roof sagging. Victor and Luca stepped out of the car and slipped into the shadows. Two men stood at the west entrance, rifles slung low. A third smoked near the gate. I'll take the drifter, Victor whispered. He moved like a shadow through the rain. The smoker turned away to flick his ash, and Victor's arm shot out, covering his mouth, knife sliding up beneath the ear. The body dropped quietly. Luca's silenced pistol coughed twice, 2 guards down before they hit the ground. They reached the steel door. A camera hung above it, red light blinking. Aunt, Luca murmured into the earpiece. Lens blind for 60 seconds, came the reply. Go. Luca picked the lock fast, the door easing open on rusted hinges. The smell of oil and dust greeted them. Inside, rows of machinery lay draped in tarps, a skeleton of industry. Somewhere deeper, men talked in low voices. They moved in silence. Victor's heartbeat was steady. For all his years of violence, this was different. Every step wasn't about control or empire. It was about her. A guard turned the corner suddenly, flashlight sweeping. Victor pressed himself against a wall, waited for the beam to pass, then lunged. His hand clamped over the man's mouth. The knife flashed once, and the body slid to the ground. The flashlight rolled away, casting a spinning halo of light across the floor. Quiet's over, Luca whispered. Then we go, Victor said. Gunfire erupted, short control bursts. Victor's pistol spoke in low thunder. 2 men fell near the catwalk. Another tried to run, screaming for backup, and Luca put him down. Smoke and echo filled the factory. Then Victor saw the door. Metal, reinforced, with a sliver of light leaking through the gap at the bottom. He knew she was there. He kicked it open. Sophia was tied to a chair, head down, wrists raw. Her eyes lifted when she heard him. Daddy, she whispered, voice cracking. Victor crossed the room in 3 strides, cutting the ropes. Shoo, he said, pulling her close. It's over. She shook her head weakly. He said you'd come. Before Victor could answer, Luca's voice came sharp. Company. The hallway outside exploded with gunfire. Bullets punched holes through the walls. Luca pressed against the doorframe, returning fire in bursts. We've got 3, no 4. Victor helped Sophia to her feet. Can you walk? She nodded barely. Yes. He handed her his jacket, pulling her behind him. Stay close. They moved fast through the corridor, gunfire echoing. A man lunged from behind a stack of crates. Victor shot him point blank. Another came from the side, screaming. Luca's blade silenced him. They ran through a maze of shadows, the factory shaking with noise and chaos. The loading dock appeared ahead, open to the night. Rain swept in sideways. A van screeched across the yard, headlights blinding. Victor fired into the windshield, glass exploding. The van skidded, slammed into a post, and stopped. Go, he shouted. They sprinted into the open, bullets whining past. Sophia stumbled once, but Victor caught her. Luca fired behind them, clearing the path. At the end of the alley, another car roared into view, one of Victor's. The door flew open, Tino at the wheel, eyes wide. They piled in. The car peeled away, tires hissing on wet pavement. Victor looked back through the rear window. In the glow of the factory fire, Damien Cruz stood in the doorway, calm, hands in his pockets. Their eyes met for one long heartbeat. Damien smiled. Not the smile of a man who lost, but of one who'd just begun a game. Sophia clutched Victor's arm. He said there'd be a price. There always is, Victor said. He pulled her close as the city blurred past. Rain, lights, ghosts of everything he had built. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt hollow. The war was only beginning. Damien had taken his daughter to wound his heart. Now Victor would burn the world to take his back. The car disappeared into the wet streets. The sound of thunder chasing it like a warning that nothing in New York was ever truly over. The Moretti mansion slept beneath a blanket of storm clouds, but inside, no one rested. The air was thick with smoke from Victor's cigarette and the faint hum of machines still warming in the war room below. Upstairs, Sophia lay in her bed, motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of her chest. Isabella sat beside her, hand resting over their daughters, eyes rimmed red from a night without sleep. Victor stood in the doorway, his shadow long across the floor. He hadn't spoken since they'd returned. His hands were clean now, but he still felt blood between his fingers. Isabella looked up at him. "She's scared," she said softly. "She won't say it, but I can see it in her eyes." "She's safe," Victor answered. The words sounded heavy, too deliberate. "Safe," Isabella echoed. "You call this safe? Look at her. Look at what this life has done to her." Victor didn't move. He stared at Sophia's face, pale, bruised, but alive. He wanted to tell his wife that it wasn't this life that hurt their daughter. It was him, the things he built, the men he allowed to live, the choices that shaped the empire everyone feared. But admitting that meant facing something he wasn't ready to see. Instead, he said, "I'll make it right." Isabella turned back toward Sophia. "That's what you always say." The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It came in thin, needling sheets, cutting through the glow of the streetlights and pooling in black mirrors along the asphalt. Victor Moretti stepped out of the SUV, the collar of his coat turned up, the wet air biting against his skin. The warehouse stood before him like a tomb, old, gray, forgotten by the city that sprawled around it. Luca came around from the driver's side, weapon holstered but hand-ready. "No guards outside," he said. "No movement. It's too clean." "Then they're waiting," Victor replied. His voice carried no fear, just the flat calm of a man who'd already made peace with what came next. From the car, Aunt's voice came through the radio. "Power's off, but I'm reading residual heat on the second floor. 7 signatures, maybe more. They're grouped together." "Good," Victor said. "Means they're not hiding." Luca gave him a look. "You sure about this?" "It smells like a setup." "It is a setup," Victor said. "But it's a setup. I'm just the man who came to close it." They moved quietly, cutting through the rain toward the side door. Victor's boots splashed through puddles without sound. Luca checked corners with his pistol drawn. The lock was cheap. One twist, and the door opened into darkness. Inside, the air was heavy with oil and rust. The faint hum of generators echoed through the rafters. Victor's eyes adjusted slowly. The floor was littered with crates and metal shelving, stacks of forgotten machinery draped in tarp. The smell of damp iron filled the air. "Stay sharp," he said. They moved in. The only sound was the distant drip of water from a leaky pipe and the steady rhythm of their footsteps. Victor's heart didn't race. It hadn't in years. He felt something colder instead, a steady burn behind the ribs, the fire that had driven him through every war this city had thrown at him. But this time it was different. This time it wasn't about territory or pride. It was about his daughter, about what Damien had dared to touch. A faint sound broke the quiet, a footstep that wasn't theirs. Luca lifted his gun instantly. "Don't shoot," came a voice from the dark. They turned. A figure stepped out from behind a stack of crates, tall, thin, hands raised. One of Damien's men. Victor recognized him. Ortiz, Damien's right hand. "Where's your boss?" Victor asked. Ortiz smiled faintly. "He's here, waiting upstairs." Victor's gun came up, but Ortiz didn't flinch. "He said you'd come," Ortiz said. "He said you'd walk right into his hands." He said. The bullet caught him mid-sentence. He fell backward without a sound. Luca looked at Victor. Could have made him talk. "He already did," Victor said. He said upstairs. They moved toward the metal staircase. The steps creaked under their boots. Each one echoed through the empty factory, sounding like the heartbeat of a dying man. Halfway up, Lucas stopped. You smell that? Victor did, a sharp tang of gasoline. He glanced around. Barrels lined the walls, some open, others capped. The smell was thick, unmistakable. He's going to burn this place, Lucas said. Victor nodded. Then we finish before the match drops. They reached the second floor. The door at the top was half open, light spilling through the crack. Inside, voices whispered. Luca counted 3, maybe 4. He held up fingers. Victor nodded. Luca kicked the door open, and the room exploded with gunfire. The noise was deafening, bullets ricocheting off steel. Victor dove behind a concrete pillar, firing in controlled bursts. Luca rolled across the floor, taking down a man behind a desk. Another came at Victor from the left. Victor's shot hit him square in the chest. The man dropped instantly. Smoke filled the room, the sharp scent of gunpowder mixing with the gasoline below. Then, silence again. Luca reloaded. That's 4. Not enough, Victor said. A voice came from afar into the room. You never could count, old man. Damien Cruz stepped out from behind a wall of crates, pistol in hand, expression calm. His suit was dark but immaculate, his hair slicked back. He looked like a man walking into a board meeting, not a fight. Victor Moretti, he said, the king who outlived his crown. Victor didn't answer. He studied the younger man, 35, ambitious, all swagger and cruelty. He saw in Damien what he had once been, before age had carved out the arrogance and left only discipline. You took my daughter, Victor said quietly. Damien tilted his head. I gave her back, unharmed. I'm not a monster. Victor's eyes went cold. You will be before I'm done. Damien chuckled. I wanted you to come here, Victor. I wanted to look you in the eye when your empire fell. While you were busy chasing me, my people were moving. Your warehouses, your docks, your banks, they're not yours anymore. He pulled a phone from his pocket and held it up. The screen glowed with numbers, accounts, transfers, digital signatures. Everything you built, I own now. Victor stared at him for a long moment. You think money makes you king? No, Damien said, but it makes you irrelevant. Lucas shifted, gun aimed. You talk too much. Damien smirked. You always let your dog speak for you, Victor. Victor didn't move. You're right about one thing, he said softly. I did outlive my crown, but that's because men like me don't die easy. Men like you, they burn fast. Damien's finger twitched toward the trigger. Victor was faster. His first shot tore through Damien's shoulder, spinning him sideways. Luca opened fire at the same moment, taking out one of the men hidden near the corner. Another gunman charged. Victor turned and fired twice more. The room erupted again in violence, louder this time, closer. Sparks flew as bullets hit metal. Damien ducked behind a crate, blood soaking through his jacket. You think this ends with me? Damien shouted. You think killing me gives you back your soul? Victor advanced slowly, his boots leaving prints in the thin layer of dust. No, he said. It just makes it quiet again. A shot rang out. Damien's bullet grazed Victor's arm. He didn't flinch. Luca returned fire, hitting Damien in the leg. The younger man fell hard, the pistol clattering away. Victor stopped 2 steps from him. The rain outside pounded harder, thunder rolling across the sky. Damien looked up at him, bloodied but still smiling. Do it, he said. Finish it. Show her who you really are. Victor stared down at him. She already knows. He fired once. The shot echoed through the factory, swallowed by the storm. Damien fell back, eyes open, smile fading into nothing. For a moment, Victor stood there, breathing slow and heavy. Then he turned to Luca. Get the car. Luca hesitated. What about the fire? As if in answer, a spark popped from one of the barrels below. Flames licked along the floor, feeding on the gasoline. Victor looked down the stairs. The fire spread fast, climbing the walls, eating the building alive. Go, he said. They ran. Smoke filled the air, black and choking. The heat pressed against their backs as they pushed through the door and into the rain. The moment they hit the street, the warehouse exploded behind them, a thunderclap of flame and shrapnel lighting up the sky. They dove behind the SUV as debris rained down. The fire roared like something ancient and angry. Luca coughed, wiping ash from his face. You all right? Victor didn't answer right away. He watched the fire consume the warehouse, watched the flames paint the sky orange. "He's gone," Lucas said. Victor nodded. "So, is the rest of it?" They climbed into the car. The rain hissed against the roof, the fire still visible in the rearview mirror. "You got what you wanted," Lucas said quietly. Victor stared straight ahead. "No, I got what I deserved." They drove through the wet streets in silence. The city looked the same as it always did, bright on the surface, rotten underneath. Somewhere in a penthouse or a bar, men would already be talking about the fall of Victor Moretti, about how the old lion finally lost his roar. But those men didn't know that lions don't die when they bleed. They die when they stop hunting. When they reached the mansion, dawn was breaking. Isabella stood at the doorway, rain misting around her. Sophia was behind her, pale but standing. Victor stepped out of the car, his clothes soaked, the faint smell of smoke still clinging to him. Sophia met his eyes. "Is it over?" she asked. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to give her something clean to hold on to. But all he could do was look at her, at Isabella, at everything he had left. "It's over for now," he said. Sophia ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He hesitated, then held her close, his hand in her hair, breathing in the scent of home. Behind them, the sky was burning orange from the warehouse, fire miles away. The world was already erasing Damien Cruz, turning him into another ghost in Victor's long list of sins. Isabella's voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "You saved her." Victor looked at her over Sophia's head. "No," he said softly. "I just destroyed what was left of me." The rain fell harder, washing the blood from his hands, the soot from his coat. But no rain could wash away the look in his eyes, the look of a man who had fought for love and found nothing left but ash. He had his family again, but the man who had gone into that warehouse was gone forever. The empire still stood, the city still whispered his name, but inside, Victor Moretti had finally fallen. And somewhere deep down, he knew monsters don't die when they're killed. They die when they realize what they've become. He left the room without another word. Downstairs, the house was no longer a home. It was a fortress. Guards patrolled the hallways. Radios whispered behind every door, and the smell of rain drifted in from the open windows. The war room pulsed with light and movement. Aunt sat hunched over the monitors. Luca leaned against the wall beside him, his coat still dripping water. "Anything?" Victor asked as he entered. "Not yet," Aunt said, eyes never leaving the screen. "But we got chatter. Word on the street is Damien's gone dark. No sightings, no signals, no money movement in the usual places. Like he vanished." "He didn't vanish," Victor said. "He's waiting." Luca nodded. "And you want to find him first?" "I want to find everyone who helped him," Victor said. His tone didn't rise, but the chill in his voice made both men straighten. He didn't do this alone. Someone opened the door for him. Aunt hesitated. "You think we got a leak?" "I think we've got a snake," Victor said. "Start with everyone who knew Sophia's schedule. Her driver, her security detail, her college contacts. Anyone who so much as heard where she was going. I want names. Every single one." And got to work, fingers flying over the keyboard. The room filled with the low hum of fans and static. Luca walked to Victor's side. "You sure you want to go down this road again?" "There's no road left," Victor said. "Only the end of it." They waited. Minutes bled into hours. The clock hit 3 in the morning. Finally, Aunt looked up. "Got something." Victor stepped closer. On the monitor, a string of names appeared, cross-linked with phone numbers, GPS data, and bank transfers. One of the names blinked red. Benny Valdez, known as Benny Two Toes. A street rat who traded gossip for survival. "Bring him in," Victor said. Luca didn't need to ask twice. Within an hour, Benny was sitting in the basement, tied to a chair under a single light bulb. His face glistened with sweat, his hands trembling. "Mr. Moretti," he said as soon as Victor stepped into the room. "I didn't do nothing." "You talked," Victor interrupted. His voice was almost calm. "And you're going to talk again. This time to me." "I didn't. I swear, I just told a guy that your daughter always goes to that cafe on Mercer. That's all I said." Victor crouched beside him. His face was unreadable. "Who was the guy?" Benny hesitated, eyes darting toward Luca, who stood near the door, arms crossed. "Who?" Victor asked again, quieter this time. "Sal Grimaldi," Benny blurted out. "He said he was working with Damien. I just passed along what I heard. I didn't think it was anything big." Victor stood. "You didn't think." He turned away, hands behind his back. The silence stretched until Benny started shaking harder. "Please, Mr. Moretti, I didn't mean to." Victor stopped him with a look. "You've already said enough." Luca shifted. "What do you want to do with him?" Victor's gaze didn't waver. "Let him go." Benny blinked. "Wait, what?" "Untie him," Victor said. Luca frowned but obeyed. Benny rubbed his wrists, confused. "You're letting me walk?" "I'm giving you a chance," Victor said. "If Damien doesn't kill you for talking, maybe you'll learn what silence is worth." They dragged him upstairs and out the back door. Rain had started again, soft but steady. Benny stumbled down the steps and vanished into the darkness. Luca watched him go. "You really think that's smart?" "I don't need smart," Victor said. "I need bait." By morning, Ant had a new file open on the main screen. Salvatore Grimaldi, dock foreman, small-time smuggler, once a loyal man. "He's been on your payroll for years," Ant said. "But he's been feeding intel to Damien's people for at least 3 months. Looks like he's been moving shipments through a side channel, taking extra money on the side. Every transaction ties back to the same burner phone that Damien used." Victor's jaw set. "Where is he now?" "Bay Ridge," Ant said. "House by the docks." "Bring him," Victor said. 2 of Victor's men picked Sal up before sunrise. He didn't resist. They found him smoking by the pier, watching the seagulls. "Mr. Moretti," he said as they pushed him forward. "I was just about to call you." Victor stared at him for a long moment. "You were about to run." Sal swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that. Damien came to me. Said he needed schedules, routes, names. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." Victor stepped closer. "You knew who you were helping." "I got a family," Sal said. "You know what that's like." "I do," Victor said. "That's why I'm standing here, instead of putting a bullet in your head." Sal's breathing grew shallow. "I didn't touch the girl, I swear." "You didn't have to," Victor said. "You just made it possible." He lit a cigarette, the flame flashing between them. "Tell me everything. Every name, every call, every dime that changed hands." Sal cracked almost immediately. He told them about the courier, a blonde driver named Milo, hired through Donnie's cousin. He told them about the secret payments, about the meetings at the old marina, about how Damien's right-hand man Ortiz handled everything. When he finished, Victor flicked his cigarette into the water. "Take your wife and your kid," he said. "Get on a bus. Don't come back." Sal's eyes widened. "You're letting me live?" "No," Victor said quietly. "I'm letting your son grow up with a father he doesn't hate." They left him standing by the water, the wind tugging at his coat, looking smaller with every step away. Back at the mansion, the rain had turned to mist. Isabella stood at the top of the stairs as Victor came in. She didn't speak at first. She just looked at him. "You found him?" she asked. "Not yet," he said. "Then what are you doing?" "Preparing." "For what?" He looked up at her. "War." She came down the stairs slowly. "You think this will fix it? That killing him will bring her peace?" "No," Victor said, "but it'll stop him from taking someone else's." She reached out, her hand brushing his arm. "You're becoming the man you used to be." "I never stopped," he said. She looked at him, searching for the man she'd married, the one who once promised her a life beyond blood and power. But all she saw was the shadow that Empire had made of him. "Just come back," she whispered. He almost smiled. "I always do." But they both knew that wasn't true. Downstairs, the war room glowed again. Ant was waiting. "Boss," he said, "that burner number linked to Grimaldi just pinged again. Long Island City. Warehouse by the river. Power went out 2 hours ago." "Heat's signatures?" Victor asked. 7, Ant said. "Could be Damien's crew." Luca leaned forward. "Sounds like bait." "It's bait," Victor said. "But bait means he's close." He pulled on his coat, the same one he'd worn into the factory, the same one that smelled like smoke and gunpowder. "Get the cars." Quiet approach. Ant looked at him. "You're sure you want to go yourself?" Victor gave a small, humorless smile. "If I send someone else, it won't end right." As they headed for the door, Isabella appeared again in the hallway. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were wet. "You promised to bring her back." Don't make me lose you too. Victor paused just long enough to kiss her forehead. I'll come back. Don't lie to me, she whispered. He didn't. He just turned away. Outside, the sky was gray, the city still half asleep. Luca started the engine, headlights slicing through the fog. The car rolled down the long driveway as the iron gates opened. Behind them, the mansion shrank to a speck of light. Victor watched the road ahead. This ends tonight, he said. Luca nodded. One way or another. The SUV disappeared into the storm, tires whispering on wet pavement. Somewhere across the river, in a forgotten warehouse, Damien Cruz was waiting. And for the first time in years, Victor Moretti wasn't fighting for power. He was fighting for his soul. The city didn't sleep after the fire. Sirens cut through the dawn, smoke crawled along the skyline, and the news called it an industrial accident before anyone even asked the right questions. But those who mattered, the men who ran the underworld, who lived in whispers and shadows, knew what had happened. Damien Cruz was dead. Victor Moretti had done himself. In the world beneath the city's skin, that kind of news didn't stay quiet. It traveled fast, carried by phone calls and cigarette smoke, until every corner bar and backroom poker table was humming with the same sentence. The king's still alive. Victor sat alone in his study, staring at the fire flickering in the marble hearth. The reflection of the flames danced in his glass of whiskey, untouched. Outside, the rain had stopped, but thunder still lingered somewhere beyond the horizon. A faint reminder that storms never end. They just move away for a while. Luca entered quietly. He'd showered, changed, but his eyes looked as tired as Victor felt. The city's talking, he said. They're calling a comeback. Victor didn't look up. It's not. You ended Damien. That's what they wanted. That's what they respect. Victor took a slow sip, then set the glass down. They respect fear, but fear doesn't hold forever. Luca across the room, leaning on the back of a chair. You should take a break. Let things cool off. Sophia is safe, the docs are quiet, the money's still moving. For once, you could stop. Victor's gaze stayed on the flames. And when I stop, someone else starts. That's the rule. You've been living by rules written by ghosts, Lucas said quietly. You killed Damien. You burned half of Red Hook to the ground. If you keep pushing, there'll be no one left to fight. Victor's lips twitched into something almost like a smile. Then maybe I finally win. Lucas sighed. You didn't win, Victor. You just survived. The words hung there between them. Victor didn't respond. Upstairs, Sophia stirred in her sleep. The nightmares came often now, fragments of the factory, flashes of light and noise. Isabella stayed with her most nights, but exhaustion had its own way of creeping in. Tonight, Victor went instead. He opened the door softly. The room was dark except for the small lamp by the bed. Sophia lay curled under the blanket, her breathing uneven. When she saw him, her eyes flickered open. Daddy. He nodded and sat at the edge of the bed. It's just me. She pushed herself up slowly, her voice trembling. I keep seeing him. Victor's jaw tightened. He can't hurt you anymore. But he said something before you came, she whispered. He said that you made him what he was. The words hit harder than any bullet. For a moment, Victor didn't breathe. He wanted to deny it, to say Damien had been lying, but lies were for people who still needed comfort. Maybe he was right, Victor said finally. I built a world where men like him survive. And one day, I'll pay for it. Sophia reached for his hand. I don't want you to go back there. He squeezed her fingers gently. Neither do I. When she fell asleep again, Victor sat beside her for a long time, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, trying to remember what it felt like to believe in something pure. By the time he returned to the study, the whiskey glass was empty. Luca was gone. Only Ant remained, his face lit by the glow of a laptop. We've got a problem, he said. Victor straightened. What kind? After Damien's death, the Cruz territory's up for grabs. Every small boss in Brooklyn and the Bronx wants a piece. And some of them are using your name. My name. Yeah, they're saying you sanctioned them. That they're working under your flag. Victor's eyes narrowed. Who? Ant turned the screen. Carmine Delero, Leon Vega, two of the younger crews from Harlem. They're moving shipments through your routes, using your guards. I traced one of the accounts. It's coming from inside our own network. Inside? Ant nodded. Someone's moving your money without your permission. Victor stood slowly. So, while I was cleaning up Damien, someone was gutting me from the inside. Looks that way. Victor paced toward the window. The city lights stared back indifferent. Find out who it is. No one makes a move without me knowing. Ant hesitated. There's more. Word is the cops found what's left of Damien's body. They're calling it homicide. They're asking questions about the factory. Victor turned, his voice quiet but sharp. They won't find anything. They might if the right person talks, Ant said. Victor stared at him for a long second. If anyone in this house talks, I'll make sure they never breathe again. Ant nodded. Understood. When he was gone, Victor stood in the middle of the room, staring at the dark window. For years, he had controlled everything. The streets, the deals, the fear. But now it all felt like sand slipping through his fingers. For every enemy he buried, 2 more rose from the dirt. He'd built an empire of loyalty, but loyalty had an expiration date. Later that night, Luca returned. He tossed a folded newspaper onto the desk. The headline screamed, "Crime Kingpin Suspected in Factory Fire." They don't name you, Lucas said, but they're getting close. Victor skimmed the article. The photo showed the ruins of the warehouse, smoke still curling from the ashes. Doesn't matter. The streets already know. What do we do now? We hold, Victor said. We keep the docks, the casinos, the routes. We show the city that nothing's changed. Everything's changed, Lucas said. You know it, I know it. You can't just patch this up and pretend the blood didn't happen. Victor looked up at him. You think I care about blood? Luca met his stare, unflinching. I think you care more than you let on. For a moment, Victor almost believed him. Then he turned back to the window. Get some rest, he said. But rest never came. At dawn, Victor sat alone in the garden behind the mansion. The sky was gray, the ground slick with dew. He hadn't sat out there in years. It was where Sophia had learned to ride her first bike, where Isabella used to drink coffee and read, back before everything smelled like smoke and power. The world around him had grown quiet again, but not peaceful, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. He lit a cigarette and watched the smoke rise into the cold air. He didn't hear Isabella approach until she sat beside him. She wore a black coat over her robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. You haven't slept, she said. Neither have you. She looked at him, studying the lines on his face. I see it now, she said softly. What Damien meant. Victor frowned. What are you talking about? You think you're fighting to protect us. But all this time, you've just been protecting yourself from the man you used to be. For what you've done. He didn't answer. She touched his arm. You can't keep living like this, Victor. Every time you kill one monster, another grows in his place. Maybe the only way to save this family is to let the empire die. He looked at her, and for the first time in years, there was something almost like fear in his eyes. If I let it die, everything dies with it. No, Isabella said. If you don't, you will. The words cut deeper than any threat ever had. From inside the house, a phone began to ring. Victor ignored it, but the sound kept echoing through the hallway until Luca appeared at the door. You need to take this, he said. It's Ant. Victor took the call. Talk. Bad news, Ant said. One of our trucks got hit on the bridge. 2 men dead, 1 missing. Whoever did it left a message. What kind of message? A bullet casing in the driver's mouth. Victor went silent. Luca watched him. Who was it? Not sure yet, Victor said. But someone sending a message back. He hung up and stared out at the wet lawn, his reflection faint in the window pane. Whoever's behind this, Lucas said, they're not scared of you anymore. Victor took a breath, steady and cold. Then it's time they remembered why they used to be. But even as he said it, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered the truth. That maybe for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he could win. He stood in the doorway, the early light spilling across the floor, and looked back at Isabella still sitting on the bench. She didn't look at him. She just stared straight ahead, her hands folded in her lap, like a woman who'd already begun to mourn something that hadn't died yet. Victor turned away, his coat brushing against the doorframe. I'll finish it, he said quietly. He didn't know if he meant the war or himself. The storm had passed, but the air was still heavy, thick with the promise of more rain. The city waited, and somewhere in that waiting, in the cracks between fear and power, Victor Moretti began to realize that the empire he'd built to protect his family was the same thing that would one day destroy it. The rain came back the night everything ended. It started as a drizzle, tapping against the mansion windows like a warning, then turned to a steady downpour that swallowed the sound of the city. Victor Moretti stood at the window of his study, watching the water run down the glass, turning the lights of New York into streaks of gold and white. Behind him, the fire burned low. The whiskey on the desk had gone untouched for hours. His phone lay next to it, vibrating every few minutes with calls from people who still pretended the empire hadn't begun to rot. He didn't answer any of them. The war he'd fought wasn't on the streets anymore. It was inside the walls of his own house. Ed had been killed that morning, shot in the head outside his apartment. No witnesses, no camera footage, just a single casing left behind, the same kind that had been found in the mouth of the dead driver. Luca had brought the news. He'd said nothing after that, just stood in the corner of the room, waiting for Victor to speak. Now, hours later, they hadn't moved. "They're coming," Lucas said finally. "Whoever's behind this, they're moving fast." Victor didn't turn from the window. "How many?" "Too many," Lucas said. "Word is Carmine Delero and Leon Vega have joined forces. They're cutting through the docks, hitting our money lines, taking soldiers one by one. They're calling it a cleansing." Victor lit a cigarette, the flame trembling slightly in the reflection. "Cleansing. That's what we used to call it too, back when we thought we were the good ones." "Victor," he turned then, eyes cold and empty. "You think I don't know what's coming? I built this city out of dirt and fear. Now it's coming to collect." Luca's jaw tightened. "We can still fight. We still have men. Give a word." Victor walked to the desk and picked up the phone. He stared at it for a long moment before setting it down again. "No more words. No more calls. Let them come." "Then what?" Victor looked at him. "Then I end it." Downstairs, Isabella packed quietly. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for explanations. She moved like a woman who had already made her choice. The house around her still smelled of gun, oil, and rain, a scent she'd learned to hate. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, her face pale, but her eyes steady. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Isabella said. Sophia hesitated. "He won't come." Isabella paused, her hands stilling over the suitcase. "He can't." Sophia lowered her gaze. "He could if he wanted to." Isabella didn't answer. Some truths were too sharp to speak aloud. She zipped the bag shut and turned to one of the guards by the door. "Get the car ready." The man nodded and left. Sophia stood. "Mom, please. Don't leave him alone." Isabella's voice was quiet, tired. "He's been alone for a long time." Back upstairs, Luca loaded ammunition into a duffel. The sound of metal on metal echoed softly through the room. "You should go with them," he said. Victor glanced over. "And leave you here die?" "I've been dying since I was 15, Lucas said. "This just makes it official." Victor almost smiled. "That's why you're still here." Lucas zipped the bag and looked up. "You know they'll hit the mansion tonight." "I know," Victor said. "You could run. Start over. You've got enough money stashed in Europe to disappear forever." "I built this city with my hands," Victor said quietly. "If it burns, I burn with it." Luca nodded once, understanding. There was no convincing him otherwise. Night fell. The mansion sat like a fortress under the storm. The gates were closed, guards posted along the driveway. But fear had already crept inside. Every man in that house could feel it, the end coming. Victor stood in the main hall, the chandelier above him casting fractured light over the marble floor. The air smelled of gunpowder and smoke. He could hear the thunder outside, like the growl of a distant god waiting for blood. Luca checked the windows. No movement yet. "They'll wait for the rain to hide them," Victor said. He lit another cigarette. His hands were steady now, calmer than they had been in years. Somewhere inside, the fire had gone out. All that remained was the quiet acceptance of a man who had outlived everything that mattered. The first shot came from the east window, a crack of thunder and glass. One of the guards fell instantly. Then came the flood of gunfire, tearing through the rain, echoing against the walls. "They're here," Lucas shouted. "Hold the line," Victor said. They took positions, Victor behind the grand staircase, Luca near the dining room entrance. Bullets ripped through paintings, shattered mirrors, turned beauty into debris. The smell of cordite and blood filled the air. Victor fired back, calm and precise. 2 men fell near the front gate. Another tried to rush the stairs. Victor's shot caught him clean through the throat. Luca moved fast, covering the west flank, but the enemy kept coming. There were too many. From upstairs came the sound of a door opening. Isabella's voice, faint but terrified. "Victor!" He turned, panic breaking through the calm. "Get them out," he shouted. "Now!" Luca ran toward the stairs, but gunfire caught him in the shoulder. He stumbled, gritting his teeth, then pushed through the pain. Victor grabbed the radio. "All units fall back. Protect the family." Static answered him. Most of his men were already dead or running. He moved toward the staircase, bullets tearing chunks from the marble behind him. At the top of the stairs, Isabella stood frozen, Sophia clinging to her arm. A man stepped in the hall behind them. Carmine Delero himself, gray-haired, eyes gleaming with hate. "This is for Red Hook," Carmine said. Victor fired before he could. The shot hit Carmine in the chest. The old man dropped his gun, stumbled backward, and fell down the stairs, his blood smearing across the marble like paint. "Go!" Victor shouted to Isabella and Sophia. "Get out!" Isabella hesitated. "Victor!" "Go!" he roared. Sophia pulled her mother away. They ran down the back hall as the shooting continued. Victor turned back toward the front, where another wave of men pushed through the doors. He fired until his gun clicked empty, then reached for another. The house was a battlefield now, fire spreading from the curtains, smoke choking the hallways. Luca appeared again, limping, blood soaking through his shirt. "It's over," he shouted. "Not yet," Victor said. Together, they fought their way toward the main door. Bodies littered the floor, the sound of rain pouring through broken glass. Then a burst of gunfire hit Luca in the chest. He fell hard, gasping. Victor dropped beside him, grabbing his jacket. "Stay with me," Victor said. Luca coughed, blood on his lips. "Told you should have gone with them." Victor shook his head. "Don't you die on me." Luca managed a weak smile. "You'll find me in the next life, boss." His hand slipped away. For a long moment, Victor just knelt there, surrounded by the ruin of his kingdom. The rain fell through the shattered ceiling, hissing against the fires that still burned. Footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. From the smoke came Leon Vega, Damien's old ally, face half lit by the glow of the flames. "End of the line, Moretti," Leon said. "You should have stayed gone." Victor stood, bleeding from the arm, breathing hard but steady. "You came for the crown. Take it." Leon smiled coldly. "Gladly." He raised his gun. Victor moved faster. His last bullet found its mark. Leon staggered, fired wildly, and both men went down, Victor clutching his side, Leon collapsing beside him. The gun clattered between them. Victor reached for it, but stopped. His vision was fading, the firelight turning to haze. Through the smoke, he could see Isabella and Sophia running toward the front door, the rain glowing white in the headlights of the car outside. They were getting away. He smiled faintly, blood dripping from his lip. For once, the war wasn't for territory or pride. It was for something that still mattered. And he had won, not by living, but by letting go. The fire roared around him, swallowing the mansion, the history, the ghosts. Victor Moretti leaned back against the wall, the sound of rain and gunfire fading into something almost peaceful. He could still hear Sophia's voice from that night. "Daddy, he said you made him what he was." Maybe she was right. Maybe they all were. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Then I'll end what I made." The fire took the rest. Outside, the storm broke. The sky cleared as Isabella's car disappeared down the long road, its taillights glowing like dying embers. Behind them, the mansion burned until sunrise. The last empire of New York's underworld turned to ash, and with it, the last king fell.